Happy Friday, everyone. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day today. My name is Andrew Heischen, and I'm the lead forecaster here in WW116. So, we're moving into the weekend, after a busy work week, and unfortunately, we do kind of have the threat for severe weather from later this weekend into next week. So, be tuned for that as we could see some, honestly, some potential severe weather on Sunday, which is, kind of looking pretty bad. So, we'll be, basically breaking that down here in the future as we move on through the video. So basically in today's video, we'll be taking a look here at the tropics like we have been. We are monitoring that one disturbance in the eastern Pacific in which this thing's actually about to form. We'll be taking a look at the overall weather across the nation. So basically, just like the satellite view to see, what areas are in, under cloudy skies and what areas are, basically mostly sunny for all part. They'll be moving on to forecast models in terms of Sunday severe weather, which honestly, it could get pretty bad. I'm looking at, potentially a triple threat being wind damage, hail, and basically the threat for tornadoes too. So we'll be definitely monitoring this over the next few days. And honestly, I don't want to spoil anything yet for later in the video, but there's a decent chance we could see some severe weather on, Sunday, in which we are going to be going live, definitely for that. So stay tuned. Then we'll be moving on to, like I said, the forecast models. And then at the end of the video, we'll be taking a look at the National Weather Service hazards. So warnings, watches, advisories, etc. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get on into it. So there's really not much going on in the Atlantic right now. I took a look at ECNS ensembles, so that's pretty much just model data. And there's really, nothing organized going on in the Atlantic right now. We are kind of in a silent period. Like I said, we are still in hurricane season, and I believe that's until November 31st. So basically the tropics, you have moments where it's quiet, and then you have moments where the tropics heat up, and basically it comes in waves, goes up and down. So right now we're just kind of in that quiet area. There's really not too much going on at the moment. So we'll stay tuned for that, but just don't be surprised if further down the line, things do heat up in the Atlantic Ocean, and we could see, potentially a few more storms before the year is out. But that basically not really too much going on in the Atlantic. So we do move into the Eastern Pacific. We've been monitoring this one disturbance for the last 3 days. Overall formation, this thing's actually about to develop. So we'll go ahead and take a look at that. So overall formation through 5 days is a high 90% chance. There's only a 10% chance this thing will not form. However, I will say this thing's almost certainly going to form. Formation chance through 48 hours is actually also a high 90% chance. The National Hurricane Center inside of this text actually says that a tropical depression or a tropical storm could form later on today. So potentially next update, this thing will probably be a named storm. So we'll just we'll keep an eye on that. We'll continue monitoring this over the next few days, but generally overall expectancy of the system is quite high at this moment, and honestly this thing like I said could form today. So we'll keep an eye on this. It's just generally moving to basically the northwest. We'll take a look at the Central Pacific. There's really not much going on here either. Kind of the same as the Atlantic. The Central Pacific and the Atlantic are kind of silent. We have all of our eyes here on the Eastern Pacific. So we'll just continue to monitor this over the next few days. So moving on to the Storm Prediction Center. Now we do have the threat for severe weather. I know this says, check to see valid convective day 1 outlook. This is actually old. If you click on this, this is actually currently, this was actually issued yesterday. But the new one for today is actually this one right here. So, we'll be taking a look at this so far. So, we do have 2 areas of marginal risk here, basically across the mid-Atlantic, basically just the eastern mid-Atlantic, mostly in North Carolina and maybe like Virginia Beach here. But pretty much, this is marginal risk here. We do have another marginal risk here for basically extreme southwestern Missouri, basically, southeastern Kansas, and basically northeastern Oklahoma here. In terms of tornadoes, we really don't expect much today. We are less than a 2% in all areas, so basically every single 25 miles has a less than a 2% chance of seeing a tornado. In terms of wind, we do have the threat for wind damage, mostly being over severe criteria. Basically, severe criteria is 58 miles per hour or more. We could see, damaging winds up to 60 miles per hour in this zone. Basically, every single 25 miles, there's a 5% chance that we could see damaging winds, along that region. So we'll just be, we'll be, paying attention over that today, as we do have the threat for damaging winds. In terms of hail, we do have the threat for hail today. Basically, 5% chance, across the marginal risk, basically through the central Great Plains here. And what this basically means is that every single 25 miles, you have you have a 5% chance that we could see hail being 1 inch in diameter or greater. So that's basically what we're dealing with in terms of that. So basically, look out in this area as we could see some, instances of, some storms producing, hail potentially 1 inch in diameter or greater. So that's basically what we're dealing with for today. We move on to day 2. We do have a slight risk in effect. In terms of tornadoes, we do have a 2%, across basically central and southern Kansas here, in which, we do have every single 25 miles inside of this, area of 2%. We do have a 2% chance of seeing a tornado, basically within that 25-mile zone. So that's what we're dealing with in terms of tornadoes. In terms of wind, we do have the threat for basically, winds exceeding 60 miles per hour, basically getting up to 60 miles per hour possible throughout this 5% region, stretching from basically the eastern panhandle of Texas all the way up through southern and central Kansas here, of course going through Oklahoma as well. So basically, same thing, you do have a chance for, winds exceeding or getting up to 60 miles per hour. In terms of hail, we actually do have a pretty decent chance for hail tomorrow. Basically the majority of the threat is across northeastern Kansas here. So basically every single 25 miles, you have a 15% chance of seeing basically hail, greater than, 1 inch in diameter or larger. That's actually an increased amount of chance. So, kind of here in this yellow zone, especially, like I said, across northeastern Kansas, this is kind of where your greatest area of concern is, in which we'll be paying attention to that. So basically your 5% zone, basically just cuts through a little sliver of northeastern, the panhandle of Texas, goes all the way through Missouri, and actually even a little bit here in Iowa as well. Basically just, southeastern Nebraska. But the majority of threat seems to be basically in central and eastern Kansas, along with this hail threat. So that's what we're dealing with. We do have a slight risk in effect for tomorrow. Now, here's where things get interesting. This is what I was telling you about. So day 2 is Saturday. Today is day 1, which today's Friday. Day 2 is Saturday, and day 3 is Sunday. Here's where things get interesting. So we do have a enhanced threat, an enhanced basically chance for severe weather. Severe storm criteria, basically, we could see some tornadoes, large hail, and damaging winds mixed in of this. So things could definitely get severe. The reason that they're actually, the thing is that, since they're actually issuing an enhanced risk 3 days out, things usually are pretty bad whenever that happens. So we'll just stay tuned for that. We could see some, potentially some interesting things. We do have another marginal risk here, basically across the northwest. However, our greatest concern here is across this area, especially this enhanced zone, basically stretching from, central and southern Missouri into Arkansas and bits of eastern Oklahoma. We also do have a sliver basically in southwestern Illinois as well. So we'll be paying attention very, very close here. So severe storms with all hazards are possible. So basically tornadoes, damaging winds, and hail can be a concern, in which we are going to go live on Sunday. I'm not sure exactly what time yet. We basically have to work that out in terms of whenever storms fire off. But whenever storms start to fire off, we're going to be going live. So stay tuned for that. But it's not over. We move on to day 4. Really nothing expected for day 4. However, day 5, we do have a large area of 15%. The fact that the Storm Prediction Center is forecasting out this far usually means that there's some type of confidence. And usually means that things could get pretty bad. We're definitely kind of in a pattern at this moment where we could see multiple rounds of severe weather, like I said, through late this weekend into early next week. So we'll be definitely monitoring this over the next several days. But yeah, 15% chance here across the southern and central Great Plains, stretching from southern Nebraska all the way down through central Texas. There's really not much on this. Okay, so basically shortwave trough. So usually those can bring tornadoes and stuff. This is actually for day 4. So day 5 would show, the strong upward trough here. Yeah, so it's still kind of far out, but we'll be monitoring this over the next several days. But it's not over yet. Day 6, we have another 15% zone across the southeast here, stretching from the panhandle of Florida all the way through central and eastern Louisiana. Going across Mississippi and Alabama as well, and actually bits of southwestern Georgia. So that's not all. We are seriously looking for the threat for severe weather over the next several days, and this is into later next week. So things are kind of heating up in terms of severe weather, and so definitely keep your eye on that. So let's go ahead and take a look here at the satellite. This is, you can see the sun still kind of rising here across the west. I'm actually recording this fairly early. It's almost 10 a.m. now. But basically, we can see that there is some storms here in Oklahoma with those higher cloud tops here, basically over, basically central and western Oklahoma here. We do have those storms. But generally, across the central Great Plains, it's mostly, mostly clear, especially when you move into Kansas here. It's pretty much all clear for everyone. But the further you move north, we do have some clouds here covering this area, and especially more as you move into the Mid-Atlantic region here, we do have a bit more clouds, stretching honestly from the southeast through Florida, going all the way up through basically southeastern Virginia. And of course, we do have some cloud cover here across the northeast and the majority of the Ohio Valley. Areas like Kentucky and Ohio and Indiana. You're pretty much overcast in terms of this. Same with Illinois too. Kind of looking like that. But the majority as you move more west, it's relatively clear, and honestly, a beautiful day for these clear areas is expected. So that's basically what we're dealing with for 2 days. Basically weather, or basically just observations as of early this morning. So, all right, now we're going to be moving on to the interesting part. Now, here's where things can get kind of interesting. So we're moving on to Sunday's severe weather, which we saw that enhanced risk. We can actually go back here, right here, this enhanced risk for basically bits of the Midwest and into the Central Great Plains. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at models here. So we're looking at supercell composite. This is basically a mixture between, instability and shear and stuff. Basically all the ingredients needed for thunderstorms to occur. So we see as we move further in, things get really bad. So we're seeing values up above 10 in some areas, which that's pretty high. Honestly, that's a pretty decent value. So like I said, this is that enhanced risk for bits of basically central and southern Missouri into central and northern Arkansas. So we can kind of see where that that threat does materialize and move into the region here. So let's go ahead and take a sounding here. We'll go ahead and take one right here, basically in southern Missouri. And let's kind of see what this is talking about. Things could definitely get interesting. So this is showing, obviously, a particularly dangerous situation, tornado. This is not contaminated, so this is actually a pretty good sounding. We do have a very nice, varying wind shear pattern here. We can actually see where that, that sickle-shaped hodograph is. That's showing that there's a nice varying wind shear pattern here at the surface. We got mid-60s dews, which is perfect. Wet bulb zero temperature going right through 700 millibars, right at the freezing point. It's usually typical for, hail. Precipitable water is honestly kind of low. In fact, that we're not going to have too much weight pushing down on your updrafts. D cape, basically downdraft cape, near 700. So that's pretty much marginalized damaging wind threat. But honestly, mixed layer instability here, about 2,000. That's definitely enough to get the job done. It's relatively dry here in the mid to upper levels of the atmosphere too. So that's usually what's needed for like hail and stuff. So overall, this sounding's really not too bad, and honestly, it's kind of concerning here. Definitely there is things in effect through, pretty much tornadoes seem to be like the major threat for this day. Tornadoes and hail kind of do, and potentially damaging winds. So it's pretty much a triple threat, meaning that all types of severe weather can be expected. So honestly, kind of a crazy sounding here. So let's go and take another one here. We'll go and take one for basically central, basically Arkansas here. We're going to see what this is saying. So we still have that varying wind shear pattern. This is not contaminated. Looks like we might have a bit of a cap. However, parcel will probably be able to go through it. Wet bulb zero temperature is slightly above 700 millibars. However, it would not, rule out, the threat for maybe some hail as well. D cape is a bit higher than the last sounding, show over 1,000 joules per kilogram. So that's pretty much, you could get some downdrafts producing some damaging winds. Honestly, probably 70 mile per hour or more. Mixed layer cape here showing about 1,800 joules per kilogram. That's honestly enough instability. So we do have very, very strong shear, especially if, with that instability and that, strong a shear, things can definitely get done. Look at this nice hooking hodograph here showing that, that varying wind shear pattern here at the surface. Basically, you have at the surface, basically winds rushing north, and the further you go up in the atmosphere, they start to move to the northeast and east. Basically, so you have those crosswinds, as you move up in elevation. So honestly, kind of decent here. So we'll be paying attention to this definitely over the next few days. Like I said, I do plan on going live for this. So relatively the mid to upper levels of the atmosphere. Honestly, it's looking kind of dry too, which could be favorable. Like I said, for maybe some hail. Potentially some small hail in this sounding is definitely possible. Precipitable water is a bit more, on the heavier side, which, could push down on your updrafts, limiting vertical velocity, which can, loft, maybe smaller hailstones, but, hail is probably still going to be a thing with this sounding. So, we'll go ahead and just, keep an eye on this over the next few days. We're going to take one here for basically northeastern Texas. So we're kind of moving down the line in terms of this. Let's go ahead and remove this sounding here. So for this sounding, we do have a slight varying wind shear pattern here. We do have dews in the upper 60s, which is good. We do have a bit of a cap in place. Storms might have a bit of an issue trying to fire off. Instability is a lot higher, though. We are at around 3,000 joules per kilogram. That's plenty enough. Even 2,000, even like 1,500 joules per kilogram is enough to get the job done. Really anything over 1,000 is enough to get the job done. But we're pushing 3,000 here, 3 times that amount. Decape is obviously higher here, showing 1,100. So damaging winds maybe of 70 to 80 miles per hour, could be possible with some storms, honestly. It's going to be kind of severe on Sunday. We could potentially, I'm saying this kind of early, but if trends keep up, we could see this thing go up to a moderate risk, in which, it's definitely it cannot be ruled out at this time, because honestly, this is showing some impressive soundings. This model is definitely really showing some things. But like I said, if models do continue to trend in the favor, if not, increase even more, we could see a moderate risk for Sunday, which is the severe threat level 4 out of 5. So stay tuned for that. It's not exactly expected, but the fact that the Storm Prediction Center has issued this enhanced risk in day 3, that's usually signifying that, things are really going to be going down. So we do have the strong shear in effect. We do have, good moisture content. We have good shear, and we have good instability. So overall, there is a triple threat for severe weather when it moves into basically next week, later this weekend. So, and then generally this low is going to be moving to the east here, in which, it's going to basically drive its severe potential, basically across the southeast as well. So we could see storms in terms of that. So let's go and take a look here at NamNest. Now this is honestly a bit more of a crazy model. It doesn't really go too far out, which you can see here is kind of just starting to get into the severe weather for Sunday. We'll go ahead and take a cherry pick sounding here, basically across Kansas and Missouri here, in which we'll take a look and kind of see what the kind of quote-unquote worst case scenario could be in terms of a sounding. So we'll go ahead and take a look here and show what NamNest basically says. I like to get everyone's opinions in terms of this. So it looks like we do have a actually honestly looking pretty good here. Dew points in the upper 60s. We definitely have that strong shear. Kind of a weird photograph in terms of what it does further down the line and towards the mid levels of the atmosphere here. But generally, dry atmosphere above, definitely hail is possible. Decape showing 1,100 joules per kilogram. Enough for damaging winds, potentially 70 to 80 miles per hour. Precipitable water, quite low. Not much pushing down on your updraft. The wet bulb zero temperature right at 700 millibars. Mixed layer Cape, just above 2,000 joules per kilogram. This is honestly kind of a crazy sounding here. Triple threat, like I said, is expected in terms of this. So we'll just keep an eye on this over the next several days. Basically for today's video, obviously the severe weather is kind of our main concern for today. But that's basically all we're going to be paying attention to in terms of models, because we are kind of, pushing kind of a lengthy video for today, because we just basically had a lot to talk about. So let's go ahead and move on to the National Weather Service hazards across the region. We'll go ahead and start with the non-precipitation side of things. We do have a few areas of dense fog advisories in effect, basically for bits of Alabama and 2 counties, actually maybe even 3 counties here in basically central and southern Tennessee. We do have some stretching from basically central Louisiana all the way down to the southern Texas coast. And then we move over in basically western Texas. We do have 2 here in New Mexico, as well as in basically the southwestern panhandle of Texas here, with that other dense fog advisory. We do have high wind warning somewhere in this region. It doesn't really highlight it on this map. We do have a high wind watch here in effect for basically western Utah, as you can see in here. So basically, potentially you could get some really strong winds, anytime soon in the future. Wind advisories in effect for basically, central and southern Oregon, and basically bits of northeastern California here, with that wind advisory. So in terms of winter side of things, we still have those freeze warnings in effect for basically bits of eastern Nebraska. I'm not sure if that was for last night, as we were starting to get in the morning. Maybe these will be moved, potentially canceled soon, or I don't know if it's for like tonight. I'm pretty sure because this was actually issued for last night, so that could have been last night's deal. In which I'm not sure if this is going to be canceled anytime soon because it is still pretty early morning, and temperatures do remain freezing. Usually around maybe around this time for the central side. So that's basically what we're dealing with there. Freeze warnings in effect for these states, stretching from basically Wisconsin all the way down through central and eastern Nebraska. So we do have a winter storm watch in effect for basically central and eastern, basically California here. We do have the potential we could see some winter weather, across this area. In terms of flooding, we do have flash flood warnings in effect somewhere on the map here. It's kind of hard to see because this is kind of an overall view look, so you can't really see that on this map. But somewhere out there is a flash flood warning. We do have a flash flood watch in effect as well. We also do have a flood watch here for basically bits of central and northern California here. We do have a lot of rain expected. Potentially we could see some flooding. And then of course we do have the flood warnings here still for basically the coast of Texas. Moving into the coast of Georgia here, we do have, and we also still have that one flood warning in effect for basically northeastern Indiana. I don't even know if that's still a thing anymore because this has been here for the last several days. So I don't really know exactly what's going on in terms of that. But anyways, guys, that's going to wrap it up for today's video. We're kind of pushing over 20 minutes, kind of a long episode for today as we do have that severe weather potential for, this weekend into early next week. If you guys have any questions, if you want me to, do a little forecast for your local area, feel free to comment down below. I'll be glad to help you guys out. If you guys are kind of concerned about the severe weather, just shoot me down a comment down below saying, will severe weather impact my local area? In which I will be able to tell you yes or no over the next few days. Anyways, guys, my name is Andrew Heishman. I'm the lead forecaster here in WW116. I hope everyone has a wonderful day today, and I will see you guys in the next update.